Alrighty then, it's time for a Jungle Kayn game. Hooray for the new champion. Which one? And I gotta say, I really do enjoy him quite a ton. He's very fun to play. But he's not without his problems. Main one being that the Rhaast form is significantly better than his Shadow form. I mean, his Shadow form has uses, but the Rhaast one is just kind of overall better. You know, better at team fights, because, you know, being an anti-tank kind of makes it so you don't rely on items as much. I mean, it's really cool pulling off some cool-ass stunts as Shadow form, but those don't matter if you're not big enough to just kind of, you know, instantly kill some characters. I'll go over it in a little bit, because, you know, and also go over all the other little issues that Kayn has, but what I do like about him too. First, I'm going to point out the first gank. The enemy Kayn, yeah, this is a blind pick, is going to try to gank my Jax teammate. You know, they go in there, Jax saw that coming, and we go in, but he's very, very low, so he can't commit too much, and I almost get killed too. We survive with just a sliver of health, and we kind of hang around because this is too much experience to lose, so we're just, you know, both soaking it up while they're still here just trying to maybe cheese out a kill. The enemy Kayn gives up, but look at how the enemy Kha'Zix is fighting. Yeah, my word sucked. The enemy Kha'Zix is fighting as if the enemy Kayn is still around. So I'm just chilling here waiting for them to slip up or do something dumb, which already is kind of stupid that Kha'Zix is remaining with so little mana. So you go in, forces flash out, the enemy Kayn comes in, and he completely screws up all his abilities, so it allows me to sort of counterattack and get some free blows. Eventually, Kha'Zix runs away, the enemy Kayn flashes in, and he just kind of, you know, ignored the fact that Jax could murder him. He wanted to trade his life for mine, which is not really worth it. Kha'Zix, you know, gambled on trying to, you know, kill me, but I still had my flash, and I managed to kill him. I saw that coming my mile away. It's like it was very predictable he wanted to cheese the kill, so I was getting ready for, you know, backstab. Yeah. So anyways, Jungle Kayn, his clearing, you all know that. Just the nature of his Q, his clearing is amazing. He can farm up a shitstorm if he's allowed to. His sustain, not so much, which is why you kind of you either use your smite, you know, prolifically to farm the jungle, or you do what I do and, you know, buy the elixir eventually. It really did actually help keep me moving a lot. Anyways, I gank bottom lane, and it doesn't go as well as I'd hope. I do use my ultimate. I do end up being able to kill the Karma, mostly because she kind of got a little too close again. You can see her. She kind of got a little too greedy there. She should let Caitlyn gun me down. And it got super close, though. It was just kind of a really poorly done gank and fight from my team. So we just kind of got paid. We kind of just paid for that. Anyhow, his other big weaknesses that, you know, yeah, he's kind of he farms really well and he does okay damage. His damage isn't extraordinary, all right, early on into the game. Like, you've seen other champions, even bruiser type of junglers, who can just kind of lay waste to their enemy. And he's a fragile champion, so yeah, his approach is cool with the shadow shit, and I really like that kind of approach, and it makes some invasions and some sort of weird ganks happen, but he can get killed really easily. And that's a huge issue for most junglers, especially characters like him. The way I see it, he's basically going to end up being he's basically going to end up being like a Yasuo kind of jungler. You know, if Yasuo could jungle, the people who are going to play him in the jungle or at all are going to be those people who just want to carry, and he's going to have a lot of weaknesses that you could possibly exploit. He's just, you know, fragile, no CC early on in the game. His approach is cool, but kind of really dangerous. You kind of rely on your teammate to do something. So you might as well have, you know, played another kind of carry jungler who could have done the same kind of thing, right? So I don't know why you would really pick him. And yeah, his transformation is cool, like, you know, if you get Rhaast, because Rhaast is more useful. But, you know, that comes by around mid-game, where you're not exactly, you know, the solo murder machine anymore, unless the enemy team just kind of doesn't try to progress the game or stall that much. He does farm a lot, yeah, but, you know, there's other carry junglers that farm just as much. But I'll give it to him. He's really, really, really fun to play. Here, I fought Kha'Zix, and I thought my ultimate was up, and I didn't even bother to use my E properly, so I kind of paid for that. Yeah, that was really bad. But yeah, I hope you guys understand what I mean. It's like, so far from playing him, I've played him a couple times. Rhaast form, when you activate that, holy shit, you're just kind of smoking people now. But prior to that, you just don't feel you're that exceptional. You're kind of just killing people who probably would have died to most anything. Like, it's throughout this entire game, I've been so terrified of approaching the enemy by myself or at all, just because like they'll gun me down really easily. I'll die. The only ways I've been able to get a lot of ganks in all the times I've played him was if the enemy overextended or did something really dumb, or my teammates were in the midst of fighting and I show up or something. I can't make ganks happen as easily with him. So, or in another game where I kind of tried it, I just sort of kind of got spanked. I didn't die, but we didn't get anything out of it, and I got really brutalized. It just sort of feels like I can't do very much with that. But I mean, that's the nature of jungle carries, right? But, you know, again, he feels sort of like you're just going to end up farming as him anyways. Even so, this is just like preliminary first impressions kind of thing. I'm definitely going to be playing him more. He's super fun to play, though a lot of people know jungle carries are my guilty pleasure anyways, like Tryndamere and Master Yi. Even though they kind of suck sometimes, and I'm not the best jungle carry in the game. So I enjoyed Kayn. I was looking super forward to him. I will also say this, though. His ultimate is so bad. Like, it does so little damage, and even if it did some damage, aside from like a, you know, point and target kind of like burst finisher or something, it just feels so, like, mediocre. I mean, his Q and his W, or his W especially, are pretty cool abilities. You know, they're very spammable, and you get to do, you know, pretty cool combos and a lot of damage. But his ultimate just kind of feels like, you know, I mean, you can, again, hit them and then insta-burst them with it, but it's not really going to do anything. And even if they buff it, probably they're not going to give it a lot of damage, because I guess the intention is to go untargetable, let your cooldowns come back, and then, you know, combo them again. I will say this, though. My favorite ability of his is the W, especially a Shadow form, or, well, a Soul Calibur form, you know, Soul Edge, Soul Calibur. Because you get to use it as like a quasi poke, you know, cast it, move back, and it does quite a bit of damage when you get ranks into it and you get more AD. So it's like, I found myself in some games just, you know, using that shit just to poke at people. In this game, you might even see me just poke at some people. And for a jungler, I mean, you guys have seen me talk about, you know, champions like Dr. Mundo having a poke being a pretty big deal for a jungler, especially in some metas in the past. That shit's dope. So this is at least a quasi kind of poke, and it's a pretty good one too. And you know, I'm not gonna detract from the opponent, the opposing Kayn from this. I'm a lot more farmed and fed than he is, so him kind of just dying despite, you know, being Rhaast, you shouldn't be trying to say like, oh, who's better. Rhaast, from the games I've played or in games I've had Kayn against me, has just done way more. And I hear it, I just kind of go full stupid and, you know, go in there thinking I can do a lot of damage. And yeah, that's kind of also one of the issues I was going to go with Kayn. So yeah, it doesn't feel like other jungle assassins or assassins in general could possibly have murdered at least one of them right there. I didn't have that shit. I mean, later on in the game, you'll see me kind of insta-burst people, but it just sort of felt wonky and all that kind of shit. So let's kind of sum it up. This is my preliminary, you know, synopsis of it, right? Again, my opinion is prone to changing the more I play the champion, the more shit gets figured out, you know, the better builds, the better whatever. Preliminary results from my testing, or at least me playing him, he's clear godlike. You know, if I still had that whole tier list shit, probably be an S or S+. That is amazing. He just wipes the floor with camps, just obliterates them. His abilities, his Q and W, again, especially his W, are really good. His W is like top tier jungle material. Especially when you either Rhaast form and Shadow form, it's spectacular. His E allows him some very creative invasions, some very creative, you know, ganks, but without any crowd control, and sometimes doesn't matter at all. And yet he's very fragile, so some opponents can just turn around and bitch slap him. That's pretty bad. His ultimate tickles. I'm pretty sure they're gonna change that up a little bit, but right now it just kind of tickles, and it doesn't feel like it's worthwhile or anything. His sustain health-wise and whatnot is alright, because he just kind of wipes out the camps. He doesn't really take that much damage, but since he's fragile, they do kind of hurt him quite a bit if he ends up struggling or falling behind, so it's pretty average, which is why in most of the games I ended up getting the Hunter's Potion. And then if I get lucky, you know, if I get pretty farmed, I don't need to, but in most games you can't expect to get that big. You could see me doing some kind of cool tricks and shit just, you know, to wipe out the Kazakhs. But yeah, my damage basically tickles his dick. It doesn't do shit. Rhaast form is definitely better. You know, it kind of forces you to try to gank certain targets just to guarantee you get the better of the two forms. Because the Shadow one, while it can do some cool things, it can split push better, it has kind of more self-utility and, you know, whimsical maneuvering. Like, just some of the shit you can do as it are really cool and fancy. But ultimately, you know, most opponents are going to be aware of that, or, you know, take care of it. And Rhaast just, in overall, it just absolutely wipes the floor out of a lot of tanks and obliterates team fights. He's just so much better. I just can't, like, I'm right even acknowledging it on Reddit that Rhaast was performing a lot better. But we'll see what happens. All right, Soul Edge is better than Soul Calibur. Hooray. Overall, I would say, sorry. The other thing is that it just sort of feels like his early game isn't strong enough or, you know, impactful enough as a jungler to really matter all too much. I mean, it's like he feels like the Yasuo or the Rib and that kind of thing. Like, if he doesn't get big or fed or anything, he might not have any actual impact. He can farm up, but most jungle carries can farm up just as good and if not better, and can have an insane amount of potential in team fights, a la Master Yi kind of shit, right? You guys have seen a Master Yi just kind of eat people alive. And yeah, like, you're sort of at the mercy of what you transform into and at what time you transform into and all that kind of shit. So it's just a lot of little tiny variables working against you. But who knows? Again, my opinion on that might change because, you know, he's pretty good at just farming and, you know, moving around the map. Very good, better than a lot of other junglers. So we'll see. Again, I'm going to keep playing him. Probably one of my favorite champions of recent memory to come out and play. He's my new Aurelion Sol, someone who's encouraging me to, you know, play the fucking game. So if I were to give him a preliminary ranking in jungle, probably an A. Just like he's not quite S material. It's not bad enough to be B material. He's got a lot of potential and a lot of cool tricks and stuff. And okay, the biggest way is this. Like, yeah, I'm saying other jungle carries are probably better than him, but he's got the most, like, you know, crazy maneuvers and shit you can do. So I would argue that he has more potential to figure out more shit with him. Right, it's like it's just too early to call on him completely, but you can already see certainly, you know, some flaws and whatnot. So again, I'm gonna keep stressing that he's a type of champion you can't completely denounce yet. You can sort of get an idea of his current power level, but it's prone to changing, especially because Riot will likely change a few things about him. I hate his ultimate. I'm gonna repeat it again. I have never really used his ultimate and felt wowed by it. And mostly feels like it does nothing. Also here, I don't know why I turned around completely. Like, my teammate was like, I'm going to cancel my teleport. I'm like, I'm going to go in anyways. And I kind of just get gunned down for that. And my teammate, he gets murdered like crazy too. Yay, for my mistake. However, the enemy team is going to go for Baron, and that is their folly too, because they're ill prepared. I don't think they really had any wards here, so they're, you know, getting sort of completely confused and scatterbrained. And they're trying to, some of them are trying to fight my teammates while the Baron is absolutely unleashing hell on them. So my teammates are able to jump in there and start cleaning them up. Two get killed. I think my Tristana gets murdered here. She takes down. My Fizz comes in and manages to take down the enemy Caitlyn, and I believe. The enemy Kha'Zix also gets murdered in a kind of funny fashion right now. Just he thought my teammate thought Kha'Zix was going to jump over and he tried to do a fancy trick, but whatever. So that was a disaster for the enemy team. They got two good picks off of me for being stupid, and my Jax for kind of trying to save my life, half being stupid. And yeah, that jump was also pretty bad. So, but they had an advantage and a way to turn it around, and they kind of just threw it. You know, in that sense, they probably should have just gunned for the Tristana and murdered her like a degenerate. And then thankfully, you know, Tristana fed herself to my opponents. Anyways, for, you know, considering his viability and stuff, I've seen a ton of Kayn laners. You know, everybody wants to make him work mid or top, and every single one I've seen just kind of sucks. They just kind of feed and die. Most of their matchups will obviously be pretty bad. I mean, all Kayn really has to combat a lot of champions is his W, and his E really can't be used all too much against his opponent, and his Q will often just get him, you know, they'll just probably trade with him and more positively since he's super fragile and doesn't really have an escape once he uses his Q and I guess his E a little. So I've just seen every single one of them get spanked. I mean, some of the matches were just blatantly bad. You know, I saw Kayn be picked against a Garen and then a Riven, and it's like, you know, those will probably spank the shit out of you no matter who you really kind of were in the first place. And then obviously characters like Renekton, and I saw one guy pick him into Victor, and that shit was equally sad. So, lane viability, I don't know. Just the ones I've seen, is purely anecdotal, have been pretty bad. Maybe there are some good ones, or maybe it's, you know, they figure out a way to make him work in the lane. So, there's that. And as we all know, the developer for Kayn is known to want to make champions, you know, work in a certain way. Like, you know, if he wants to make him in a jungle, they'll probably push him into the jungle role wholeheartedly. I just, again, don't really feel like he might be the best pick as a or, you know, in a lot of situations. Again, as a jungler, he's got a lot of positive traits, as a jungle carry, I mean, but he's not perfect. He's kind of flawed in some ways, and he's more like a mid-game kind of champion. And for certain carries, it's not or for a lot of junglers, it's no bueno if you can't have that early game impact. Although, I don't know how much of an effect it will have on jungling. Riot announced that they kind of really want to nerf the shit out of that early game impact. Although they kind of announced that every fucking season, so we'll see what the fuck they do this time. You know, they might just gut jungling altogether. Who knows? They do that every season too. So we'll see what happens. Again, Jungle Kayn has a lot of potential, but as it stands, he has flaws, and some of them are pretty considerable. So, you know, needing to rely on others to help you actually kill things, but you needing to actually kill things in order to unlock your full potential as a champion. And your approach is being super risky and really dangerous, and not really mattering too much. And obviously the jungle doesn't have as much farm as you might want as a carry, blah blah blah, that kind of stuff. So again, he's just kind of, if you get fed, you can dominate, and then if you don't, you kind of don't really do very much, unless you get Rhaast, which again in itself is a tall order in certain situations. So I don't know. He's a champion counting on a lot of variables going positively for him, and I just kind of don't really see it working all too well. But here's hoping I'm proven wrong, because I loved playing him so much.